Hey, this is Chris with Hacking Your Leadership. On today's discussion on employee engagement, we're continuing the talk that we started a few weeks ago on kind of the more insidious causes of a lack of employee engagement that aren't kind of at the high level, easy to figure out, from a leadership standpoint. What are the things happening behind the scenes that might be the causes of a disengaged employee or a disengaged team that might not be, right in your face when it's happening? Kind of have to dig a little bit to kind of find out what's going on. If you haven't listened to the last few episodes on this, they're great discussions. Last week, we talked about what happens when a lack of transparency exists on a team. On this episode, the topic that I want to discuss is when there is not enough reward or recognition for employees. And this is a touchy subject because, on the one hand, rewards and recognition oftentimes erroneously get grouped in with compensation, right? Like the compensation for doing your job, whatever you're paid, even if it is, bonuses, that is not rewards and recognition. That is the cost of doing business. That's the reciprocal agreement you made with an employee when they were hired, that you do this for them and they do this for you. That's what compensation is. Rewards and recognition is completely separate from that. It is not part of their compensation package. It's different, even if it looks like compensation, which sometimes it can, but it looks different than that, and it needs to meet people where they are, because you could have a ton of rewards and recognition. If it's not landing the right way on some people, they will disengage.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think it's so much of that is going to be like how people feel, and are you, providing things, I think, in general that everyone is appreciative of. And I think that's important. You kind of have to start with a very big base around these are things where, we feel good about the work that we do, and we feel that like we get credit for the work, we get recognized for the work, we celebrate the work. Those types of things feel really good. When it comes to really dialing into employee engagement, it really is defined by the individual, and that takes some time. Like, now, I think that there are things that if you're in certain industries, doing certain types of work, there are some very general styles of recognition that people kind of get used to or somewhat expect. But when it comes to like if you're trying to make sure that people are feeling good about the work, then I think including them in the dialogue around recognition. And I like to do it personally, like as a larger group. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the fact that people do see recognition different, and we want to be conscious of the fact that people see it differently, but we also have to solve for the larger team. So let's talk as a larger team. What does that look like? What does that look like for you? What does it look like for you? What are some things that we've done that you've appreciated? What are some things that we've done that maybe fell short? But getting that element of dialogue going, and then being able to work with the team to define the things you're going to do from a recognition reward standpoint, I think that can be extremely helpful in just owning the narrative of what is recognition and are we doing something intentional with it. And I think for a lot of people, they appreciate that. Even if it's not exactly what they would want or how they would want it done, they know there's a real effort being done to recognize, but also to include in what that looks like for the larger team.
Right, for sure. It needs to meet them where they are, or at the very least get as close as you can. And part of that involves inviting the individual people into the discussion about what that looks like for them. Like, what do they want it to look like? What do they not want it to look like? I know some people who would be absolutely mortified, terrified, embarrassed if they were shouted out in front of the team for something positive. They just don't want it. But that doesn't mean they don't want recognition or reward for doing a good job. It just means they want it differently than somebody who wants to stand up on the podium and take a bow, right? Like, there's two different people, both hardworking, and both define positive recognition and reward for themselves differently, but both of them will stop producing and disengage if they're not getting it in the way that they want. So if the person who wants the whole team to clap for them when they do something well, if all they're getting is a behind the scenes, kind of handshake from the manager going, "Hey, great job yesterday," that person might disengage. On the other hand, the person who does not want the public recognition and that's all they want is the handshake and say, hey, that was a great job yesterday. That could be all that is needed to drive them for the next 2 months to do the best work they've ever done. So again, it's individualized, and you as a leader have to meet people where they are. So I want to go over some of the things you can do as a leader to make sure you're doing this correctly and in a way that both is fair and that seems fair from each person on your team. But first, let's give it up to word from one of our sponsors. All right, if you're a leader of people and you're trying to figure out where best to kind of meet your people where they are from a recognition and reward standpoint, there's a book that was out many years ago called The 5 Love Languages, and it talks about in a romantic relationship with somebody, there are different ways that they want to be talked to from a love language. And there's, physical touch, there's acts of service, quality time, gifts, like there's different things that you can, and while they all might be great, there's usually one, maybe two, but usually one that a person just really gravitates towards. Like in terms of, if you do this for them, then that's how you show them that you love them. Like they feel loved when you do this thing for them. I think employers are no different, even though the ways that you do it are clearly going to be different in a workspace. But employees want to be recognized and rewarded. All of them do. But the way they want to be recognized or rewarded is going to be different from person to person. And you need to figure out what that is individually. You need to talk to individual people within the parameters of what is possible, right? No, someone can't say the way I want to be rewarded is for you to increase my salary every time I do something well. That might not be in the parameters of what you can do as a leader. So that wouldn't be on the table. But within the parameters of what you can do, talk to people about how they want to be rewarded and recognized. Things like quality time, that can be a shared thing. I know that if a leader were to pull me aside and say, hey, let me buy you a cup of coffee, let's just talk about the future. Like, to me, I feel like I'm being rewarded and recognized. I want to have those conversations where I kind of get to know my leader better and they get to know me better. Feeling like I can put on the table what my long-term goals are in the hopes that maybe they'll take some of those under their wing and help me accomplish them. To me, that is being rewarded and recognized. Other employees just want like a quick pat on the back and a handshake and a great job. And, they would look at the idea of having a one-on-one conversation with the leader about future goals as daunting. And they have no desire to do that. And they just want to be able to get their work done. So each individual person is going to be different. And you as a leader can't just kind of, cookie cutter it across everybody because it might be the way that you enjoy giving recognition or that it's easy for you to do. It needs to be in a way that they actually want to be recognized. And oftentimes, employees won't be able to tell you that until after they've gotten it. Oftentimes, employees who've never been asked how they like to be recognized don't know the answer to that. They can only know how it made them feel when you did something already. So, hey, the other day, I recognized you for doing this, and this is the way that I did it. How did that feel? Did that sit right okay with you? Or would you prefer it a different way? And sometimes you have to put it in the context of something they've already been through to get them to the point where they can say, you know what? Yeah, I actually did like that. Or maybe I prefer this instead. Again, having the conversations about it with your individual employees so that you know how to recognize people will be the most important thing you can do to make sure that the recognition you are giving is actually doing something for the person and not just something they're trying to avoid.
Yeah, and I think too, you were kind of talking through this, and I was thinking about the fact that I think it's also important to review and talk about what are your recognition and review kind of options, or what are the things that you do or the organization does that you work for, and say, hey, Chris, I want to talk about recognition and rewards with you, and I want to kind of go over some of these things, but I also want to better understand within all these options that we have, are there ones here that you prefer most? Are there ones here that work best for you? Are there things that we're not thinking about that you think are something that we could do here? Like having that dialogue, because I think that we tend to want to go right to what do you want versus here's what we have, what works best for you. And then if there's something that we're not thinking of or that we could consider, we can have that conversation as well. But many times within that conversation, there's a lot of options and things that can be done in a way that work best for you and provide you with what you're looking for. And if somebody says well, I mean, you want to recognize and reward me, I'd like to make more money, then let's have that conversation. You know what I'm saying? Like what do you do and how does that happen and how do you get to the point of increasing your income so that it's where you want to be? And then as we do that and as you do this work, how do you want to be recognized when you do a great job? Because like you need to do a good job to a great job to have opportunities to then be able to impact your income. But like you can still have that whole conversation. But I think that for me, if you're really looking to solve for a greater understanding of how do you recognize your people uniquely, start with giving them all the things that you already do and finding out what works best for them. And then you can have some more dialogue. If there's, things that are close or that are within the scope of your capability.
Right, for sure. Because there's very few things are off the table. They just might not be on the table in the way the person is thinking about it to begin with, right? So like your example of I want more money, great, let's get you more money. Here's how you get promoted to the next level to where you would get more money. It's like, oh, no, I mean like when I do something well. Right, that's what I'm talking about. When you do something well, it puts you on the path to be able to get to the promotion that you want to get more money. You're telling me this is what you want. I'm going to tell you how to get there. And I'm committed to getting you there as long as you are too. And if you go about it that way and kind of redefining it with that person in that conversation about what's possible, you'd be surprised what is left that is not on the table, what's not possible. Very few things, if it's framed correctly and in a way that is not just kind of like transactional, right? The recognition that is transactional, that is very short term. I did this thing well, therefore I'm going to do this for you. That kind of transactional recognition, that's important too. But that doesn't, you don't get promoted for doing something well once, right? You don't get more money for doing something well once. The ways that you recognize people individually for those little things, that's what will get them the book or library of behaviors and repeated results and outcomes over time that will get them the promotion that they want. And oftentimes a leader who doesn't do a great job of the individual transactional pieces of recognition, those are the ones that fail their people in the long term, because the lack of that transactional recognition that happens on one-off basis is what causes them to not want to repeat the actions they did that got them the transactional recognition that then leads to a consistent pattern of behavior of the positivity and the results that then lead to the larger, kind of doors being opened and career opportunities for them. So, all of these kind of broader things that people want, the promotions, more money, more responsibility, these things, very few of them are possible without those individual pieces of recognition that you can give people on one-off basis. They're so important. It's the little things add up to be bigger than the big things. Thank you all for joining us on this discussion on employee engagement. We'll finish up this discussion next week when we talk about the last kind of item of insidious ways that your employee engagement can be low. You have a great day.